Hey guys, let's discuss the second part of this week's current affairs. Here's the first question, and this is about the monetary policy that was announced recently. Now, the details are mentioned this on the screen for you. I'm going to discuss these points here, but more importantly, I'm going to take you through the highlights of the monetary policy. Okay, in light of what has the government, has the RBI announced these measures? Okay, and before all of these, I would want you to write the members of the names of the members of the Monetary Policy Committee (MPC). Please write the names. So you could write, one, 6 members, 6 members. So please write the names. One, Shaktikanta Das. Shaktikanta Das, as you know, he's the governor of the RBI. Shaktikanta Das. 2, Dr. Michael Devabrata Patra, MD Patra. MD Patra. Next, number 3. I'll write randomly wherever I get some space. Okay, guys. As you know, that's what I do in all these classes. Then number 3, Dr. Sashanka Bhide. Then Dr. Ashima Goyal. Then Professor Jayant Verma. You got what? 5 names. Shaktikanta Das, 1, Shaktikanta Das, 2, MD Patra, Sashanka Bhide, 4, Ashima Goel, 5, Professor Jayant Verma, 6, Dr. Mridul Sagar. Okay, so these are the names of the 6 members of the Monetary Policy Committee. I want you to write more now. The basic definitions, and then I'll take you to the highlights of the monetary policy. Okay, repo rate, please write this. Repo rate, rate of interest charged by the RBI, rate of interest charged by the RBI on short term loans, short SHORT, short term loans in brackets less than 1 year maturity, short term loans to commercial banks, So essentially what it says is, when commercial banks borrow money from the RBI, they charge the rate of interest, and that's currently at 4%. So you could write dash currently 4%. Currently 4%. Next, reverse repo rate. Reverse, REVERSE, reverse repo rate. Reverse repo rate. Reverse repo rate dash rate of interest charged by commercial banks on short term loans to the RBI dash currently 3.35%. 3.35%. Yeah, I think, yeah. Next, bank rate. Look at choice B. Bank rate. Okay, bank rate. Uh, Rate of interest charged by the RBI. Rate of interest charged by the RBI on long-term loans to commercial banks. On long-term loans to commercial banks. Dash. Currently it is 4.25%. Currently it is 4.25%. Next. I think you could write all these things. So what exactly has been happening? I mean, what is the state of the Indian economy and what is the state of the global economy? Let's look at the global stuff because that has a great impact on the Indian economy, because our economy is integrated with the world economy, with the global economy. So, see, recently things have been pretty bad for the world economy. The recovery has been quite uneven. Some parts of the world have seen uh, better recovery than most other parts of the world. While within this recovery also there has been uneven recovery within, between sectors. Some sectors have done quite well, others haven't been so lucky. Now, if you look at you know the problems being faced by the global economy, there are like the conflict in three major problems. One, the conflict in Ukraine. So the major one would be conflict in Ukraine. This relates to the war between Ukraine and Russia. That's one. Two is the structural slowdown in China. The economic slowdown in China is having a great impact on a lot of countries selling commodities. Countries like Chile, Zambia, which are major copper exporters to China, are facing a great downturn because of lack of demand for their copper from China. Because China is going through a very bad patch. Not only has its economy not doing well, there are also political problems, because the Chinese government is adopting a COVID zero approach, where they say that no, we don't want anyone to have exposure to the virus. So their entire cities, they have shut down entire cities. A city like Shanghai has been shut down. Think about it. 2.5 crore people are under are in a lockdown in Shanghai. So there is a great deal, and Shanghai is their biggest financial center. So there's a great deal of angst, and I would say forget the angst among the people of China. We are talking of, let's say, the economic impact. So there is a structural slowdown in China. That's number two. Number three is global inflation. Inflation around the world is on very, very high trajectory. It's going up actually. Now, why is inflation going up? There are reasons, two major reasons. One, of course, is supply chain issues, because the pandemic supply chain has been disrupted in a big way. And second thing is second major reason is there is a great spike in commodity prices. Yeah, commodity prices. Of course, commodity prices have gone up primarily because of supply chain issues, but also there are a few things that have gone up because of the conflict in Ukraine. Like, for example, the price of wheat and soya. Apart from agriculture products, oil prices have gone up. Oil prices are today at a 14-year high. Can you believe that? Last 14 years we haven't had this kind of a spike in international oil prices. Okay, so oil prices are shooting through the roof, and when oil prices shoot through the roof, it has a cascading impact. That spike has a cascading impact on the whole economy, because energy, oil, gas, and all that stuff goes into everything that runs the economy, that chucks the economy along. If you look at the prices in India. Oil prices are at a historic high. We are paying about 120, 115 rupees per liter. Of course, this varies between the states, but let's say 115 rupees per liter of petrol. Which now, if if let's look at diesel, 105 rupees, 100 rupees. Take a round figure of 100. 100 would mean, so earlier it was, let's say, 70 rupees. Now it's 100 rupees. This has led to a huge, increase in the cost of production, in the cost and the supply chain cost, which has translated into higher prices of goods, and which has meant that inflation has gone up. Inflation is impacting everyone. Inflation is impacting everyone. So global recovery is in a bad shape because of high commodity prices, and also high prices of oil and gas. Now, to tackle this situation of high inflation, what's happening is this: central banks around the world, and let me tell you something before this. It is not just that India is experiencing high oil prices, that India is experiencing high inflation, which is about India's inflation is about 5.9%. Of course, it goes up and down depending on what parameter you take. But you look at 6%, which means that prices over the on average have gone up by 6% in the last 12 months. Which also means that the value of your money, the purchasing value of your money has gone down by 6%. If you look at not just India, and let's say the United States, the United States is experiencing inflation, the highest inflation in the last 42 years. America has not had this kind of inflation in the last 42 years. So it's at a peak, very, very, high peak. Now, what is the central bank? What is the central government response? Everywhere in the world, central banks, major central banks, if you look at the European central banks, if you look at American central bank, the British central bank, the Japanese central bank, they are all raising interest rates. See, India hasn't. India is a major player, but India hasn't increased interest rate. So when interest rates go up, what happens? See, they are tightening in America and all that. They are tightening monetary supply. When they say tightening monetary supply, they are trying to reduce the amount of money in the market. How do you reduce the amount of money in the market? By raising interest rates. When you raise interest rates, let's say something like a repo rate or a bank rate or something as simple as CRR, okay, which is not an interest rate, but technically is kept with the RBI, money that is kept with the RBI. So if you look at only these parameters, repo rate and all that, see, three things majorly happen when money supply is tightened. One, interest rates go up. When interest rates go up, what would happen? Cost of production rises. Your money outgo goes up. Your EMIs go up. Your EMIs go up. At the same time, if you're a producer, the cost of production will increase. And when to budget for the increase in the cost of production, you raise prices. So this also leads to inflation. So one thing feeds the other actually. Now, but one major problem with this is when prices go up, when loans go up, when EMIs go up, the economic activity also decreases because people are not incentivized to borrow more and spend more. You wouldn't borrow money if interest rates are high. If the bank charges a higher rate of interest on your loan, you wouldn't borrow. So that kind of decreases economic activity, because when you borrow, as a producer, you would invest in business, which will lead to economic activity. Now you're not borrowing, so that economic activity doesn't happen. And if you're a consumer, you would borrow. If you would not borrow, what would happen? The demand for stuff that you want to buy with that loan decreases. And you will not be the only guy, not taking a loan. There are millions of people like you. There will be millions of people like you who would not take loans. So the overall economic demand falls. Okay, that is what the hope is. That would lead to a decrease in prices, decrease in inflation. Okay. Second, of course, gold prices are going up. When inflation is high, when things cost a lot, when people are uncertain about whether they should be borrowing or not, what people do is they try to invest in gold. And gold is a safe haven, HAVEN. Haven means is refuge, a shelter. It protects you from bad things actually. So gold is a good hedge, hedge. Hedge means anything that cuts you, helps you cut risk actually. So people always say that if you could buy gold, it would help you tide over crisis, economic crisis. Because see, if you put money in a house, if you put money in a car, you can't sell them immediately, and you may not really get the right price. But if you look at gold, gold always gets you the right price, and its value, while it may not increase in the immediate future, it always rises over a long period of time. Okay, and you get immediate cash. It's a highly liquid asset. Next to cash, it's the best cash. Okay, it's a highly liquid asset. So people are running to gold to invest, to buy, to take care, to ward off the negative effects of inflation. At the same time, when interest rates in the US and everywhere else are going up, what would happen to the money invested by foreigners in India? The money invested by foreigners in India will see an outflow. Because see, in the past, when interest rates in America were near zero at the bottom actually, investors didn't find much of an incentive, much of a reason to invest there, because they were not getting any returns. So what has happened in the recent past is interest rates in America are rising. So money is being withdrawn from Indian stock markets, which is, as stock markets, money is withdrawn, money is taken away to invest in America. Now, why America? Because America is a very safe market. And when major, fund managers, let's say we're talking of large mutual funds managing billions of dollars, they withdraw money, they withdraw in large numbers. And to withdraw money, they need to sell their shares. And when they sell their shares, the supply of shares rises, the prices fall. And this is one of the fundamental reasons why the share market in India has been seeing a fall in the last few sessions. Okay, because interest rates in America are rising, and foreigners are withdrawing their money, and while withdrawing their money, they are dumping. To withdraw their money, they dump shares, which is leading to a decrease in prices, which leads to a decrease in Sensex index numbers, Sensex, Nifty and all. Now, America is considered to be the safest financial investment market in the world. Yeah, it has debts and everything, that's secondary, but the rule is that America has never defaulted on its loans. Well, of course, India has never defaulted, but India doesn't have a very large domestic economy compared with the US. America's economy is about $22 trillion, ours is 3. So America's economy is 7 times larger than ours. Okay, so if the interest rates go up even by 1%, that would be a substantial increase, substantial reason for foreigners to withdraw their money from India and invest in America. So they may get 3% in India, they get 1% in America. That's still okay, because American market is much less riskier than the Indian markets. Okay, so the RBI has said that we will also tighten, we will also reduce the supply of money by increasing interest rates, but this will be over the next 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years. So it will be gradual. It won't be immediate. It will be gradual. Unlike the American, central bank, which is called the Federal Reserve, there, we are going to go gradually, pretty gradually. Okay. So I just wanted this. Now the government is looking at, see, inflation is projected at 5.7%, and real GDP, some say, is going to be about 8.9%. It's 7.2% there. See, what could be the GDP is anyone's guess actually, the real GDP. Real GDP is after inflation. You deduct the rate of inflation. So if you look at what might happen tomorrow, we don't really know, because see, no one can predict what might happen. But we certainly can prepare. We can certainly prepare for the future, like the government is preparing. Like in the recent budget, the government said that we are going to spend 7.5 lakh crore rupees through capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is about creating assets. Expenditure made to build assets, roads, dams, airports, okay, railways, all that stuff. That's called asset creation. So any expenditure resulting in asset creation is called capital expenditure. So this year's budget is 7.5 lakh crore rupees. So 7.5 lakh crore rupees will go towards building stuff, and that money will come through a multiplier effect into the market. Okay, which means that cement companies, concrete, as concrete selling companies, coal companies, steel companies, iron ore companies, they will all benefit through extensive building of roads, airports, all that stuff. You need to look at it that way. And these are all capital intensive businesses, which means that as they get businesses, they would need people to cater to the production to meet the demand, and which would lead to employment generation. So there is direct and indirect employment generation through this. So when people have money, they would spend money, they would create the demand for goods and services. That would lead to an increase in economic activity, which would be spurring economic growth in India. So that's a hope of goods. And then there are schemes like production linked incentive schemes. So two major things: production linked incentive schemes and schemes across for different sectors, and what we say, government capex. Yeah, government capex. These two are likely to increase private sector investment in different sectors. Hopefully things work well for India. We are doing quite well, but of course inflation is something that you could call imported inflation. There is always a problem with this, and hopefully the RBI is not very, eager to follow the West, because see, I strongly believe, as I'm not an economist, I'm a teacher, I strongly believe that growth is far more important than inflation. Okay, why? Because see, when there are lower interest rates, loans are cheaper, producers borrow more to spend more, to invest, to invest in production capacities and all that. They would need cheaper loans. So when they invest in production capacities, to increase production capacities, and when people like us borrow money to buy loans, to buy bikes, buying a loan, it's called buying a loan. You buy a loan. Okay, so you buy a loan to buy a car, let's say. So when you buy a car, you create demand for all the things that go into the car: the steel, the cabling, the iron sheets, the leather, the plastics. You got it. So it has a cascading impact on the economy. So when companies invest and consumers demand, because of lower interest rates, the demand goes up. This has a huge impact on production, on and employment generation. When employment generation goes up, incomes go up. People have incomes. When people have incomes, they have the purchasing power. When they have purchasing power, the demand for goods and services increases. Okay, and this demand will again lead to production. Production would mean employment generation. So it has a cascading impact, a positive cascading impact. Of course, inflation is a worry, but that would be more of a supply side issue. Supply needs to go up, and if supply goes up, things could change. But these things don't happen in the short term, they happen in the long term. Okay, but in economics it is said that in the long run we are all dead. That's how it is. Okay, these are the words of the great economist John Maynard Keynes, J.M. Keynes, Keynes. Okay, so that's about it. I just wanted to share a few things about the state of the global economy. Things are pretty bad. That much I can tell you. See, China has grown at 8.1%. China grew at 8.1% in the last calendar year. In 21. Because Chinese economy, China takes the calendar year as a fiscal year. Calendar year is the fiscal year. So China's economy grew by 8.1% in 2020 in 21. It is likely to grow at their projected GDP at the beginning of the year was 5.5% for the current calendar year 22. but it is likely to be around 4%, much less than 4% if numbers current situation persists, because entire cities major cities are under lockdown, and the government of China has also cracked down on the real estate sector. It has cracked down on the education sector, on the technology sector. I follow the Chinese economy as keenly as I follow the Indian economy. Okay, I have a great love, for learning, and I'm sure that most of you have this. I'm sure that you have this. Push yourself very hard to learn these things. They impact the world. What's happening in Ukraine is impacting our pocket here, isn't it? Yeah, it's impacting the mother in the kitchen. So please be interested in learning these things. Okay. Electronic clearing service can be availed by all of them, actually. Yeah, all of them. What electronic clearing service? You could write this. I will suggest you write a short note on this. Okay, please write this. I don't think I need to write anything on the screen for you. Please write this. Facilitates consumers of utility companies, consumers and subscribers or consumers of utility companies, utilities, simply called utilities. Facilitates consumers, subscribers or consumers of utilities to make routine, ROUTINE, routine and repetitive payments by mandating their banks to debit their accounts and pass on the money to the utility companies. Full stop. Next point. No limit to maximum and minimum amounts of payments. Okay, yeah. What exactly does this mean? Let's say you have electricity payment. Okay, you have to make payments for your for the consumption of electricity at home. Every month you have to pay. And what you could do now is you could tell, let's say, your bank that, look, this is the payment that would be there, you pay. So they would automatically debit your account with that amount. They will make the payment because of your mandate, permission to the bank. You tell, like, it's like a SIP, systematic investment plan. You have a mutual fund investment. So once you give a mandate to the bank, the mutual fund will take the money straight from your bank account. That's it. Because you have already given the mandate to the bank that, yes, when the mutual fund makes a request for payment from my side, you make the payment and by debiting my account. So all of it can be used by everyone. This has greatly minimized paperwork. It has greatly enhanced customer satisfaction. At the same time, it has made life easy for utility companies. They get their money on time. It often happens that people forget to make payments. It's not that people, deliberately, but sometimes in the ordinary course of ordinary life, they fail to make certain payments. So these kinds of things could be avoided if there is an ECS, an electronic clearing service. Okay, through bank mandates, you can tell utility companies take money from there. That's it. Okay, yeah. See, I'll tell you, when you make a payment, let's say you make electricity payment, okay, through Paytm. It will ask you, do you want this to be automatically debited the next time is a similar bill is generated? It's check marked actually. You can uncheck, but if it's check marked, it means that the next time you don't have to pay the, Paytm will take the money. Paytm will take the money from a bank account and pay to the utility company. So this is normal. This is normal. GPay, PhonePe, all these, payment services, help us get these services now. It's a good thing actually. The term arbitrage, how do you pronounce this? Arbitrage. Where is it? Arbitrage. Arbitrage. Okay? The term arbitrage is used in the context of, see, it's very simple. Yeah, it says 2 and 3. Yes. Let's say I borrow money from you. Let's say I borrow money from you we are friends. Let's say you and I are friends. You lend to me at 6% interest. I borrow from you 1 lakh rupees. I'll pay you 6% interest, and I'll lend to someone else at 10%. I'll make 4%. That's number 2. It's a very normal thing. Okay, banks do this. Banks borrow from us. It's not strictly arbitrage, but you think like this. Banks borrow from us. How do they borrow? Our deposits. Our deposits to a bank are liabilities. Our deposits are liabilities. I'm giving you a different perspective. When you put money into a bank account, you are actually lending to the bank. That's why it pays you interest. So it pays you, let's say, 6%. Okay? You put your money in the bank, it pays you 6%. I borrow money from a bank, it charges me, let's say, 12%. Got it now? Borrowing at a lower interest rate and lending the same money to someone else at a higher interest rate is arbitrage. This is one way. Another is people buy commodities. Let's say people buy gold. In the Bombay market, they buy gold at, let's say, 50,000. And they would look at the prices. In Hyderabad, it is 51,000. So they buy at 50 there and sell in Hyderabad at 51. They pocket the 1,000 in difference. That's it. It's a very normal business practice. Yeah, it's a pretty good way of making money. See, economics is not about money. Economics is about human behavior with regard to resources like money. Money is one of the resources. How you treat money is economics. How you behave towards money is economics. How you behave towards the different kinds of resources is economics. Okay. Under which act does the RBI perform supervisory functions over banking sector? Banking Regulation Act 1949. There's nothing to discuss here. Okay, it's a little dull question. The headquarters of EBRD is in what is EBRD? European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. You could write this. European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Established 1991. Head office London. It's mentioned here in the question. That's the answer to the question. London. President Odile Renault Basso, hyphenated name, of France, Odile Renaud, it's the D silent, Renaud Basso, president, is of France, he's from France. Okay, the choices here, what will you write? Brussels, European Commission, Paris, UNESCO, Geneva, WHO, ILO, International Labour Organization. Berlin, I don't find much actually. I couldn't find anything great in Berlin except that it's a great city of goods and it's a headquarters of a lot of companies. Yeah, but that's about it. Yeah, it's headquarters of Siemens. Siemens has two headquarters. One is what is that? Berlin. The other is Munich. Okay. Yeah. So, credit card use amounts receivable from credit card users are unsecured loans. See, credit card is a magic thing, a pretty magical thing. Trust me. Okay. Okay. Let me tell you. This is an MX card, American Express card. So, all the data that a bank would need would be in this particular strip. Okay, this is magnetic strip would have all the required data. Now, when I see I may not have any money, and let's say I go to a particular hotel. I go to, let's say, the Taj. I have a big meal, lavish meal. I give this card, make the payment. 11,000 rupees. Whose money am I using? The bank's money. It's not my money. The bank's money. The bank, I am using the bank money as a loan. Have I put any security there? No, it's an unsecured loan. It's an unsecured loan. So credit card is an unsecured loan, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, the rate of interest is very high. Okay, the rate of interest, let's say, on credit card typically is about 3.5% per month. Compounded monthly comes to about 44%, 44, 45. Yeah. So if you don't make the payment on time, you will end up paying an extraordinarily great deal of interest. And this is a debt trap. A lot of people get into a debt trap, because of credit cards. They think, okay, I'll borrow money now. I'll use the card. I can make the payment later. But later, money may not be there, or there could be other needs for which money cash will be required. So they make the money is diverted there. No money is there to make this payment. So they may charge you a lot of interest. Trust me, it's not a good thing. You should know how to use this. In the last 15, 16 years or 20 years of my using credit cards, I've never paid a paisa of interest. But I use this for every payment. Because it's no point in using our money, my cash, for something that a bank could pay me for. I'm using bank's money, but you should pay the due date much before the due date. At least 3 days before the due date. Always make the full payment, never the minimum payment. Okay, so it's an unsecured loan. In collaboration, not collaboration, it's collaboration or collaboration. In collaboration with Worldwide Fund for Nature India, which state's Biodiversity Board will develop the state biodiversity strategy and action plan that will be aligned with the post-2020 global biodiversity framework and the PACE declaration. Arunachal Pradesh. I'll just not go there. I'll just mention a few things about this. I'll mention the CMs. It's been some time that I mentioned the CM of Arunachal Pradesh, Pema Khandu, Mamata Banerjee, Prem Singh Tamang, Tamil Nadu, Muthuvel Karunanidhi Stalin, Haryana, Manohar Lal Khattar, okay, Identify the new broadcast services website recently launched by the center to ensure faster filing and processing of applications for broadcast licenses, permissions, and registrations. The broadcast saver. I went to the website. It kind of minimizes paperwork and everything, and you not only get faster services, you also cut down the red tape, the amount of time taken, longer time taken, and corruption. This is a very good thing because now there is no interface. People don't know who you are. They can't really ask you for bribe actually. Okay, it's a faceless interface. It's a faceless interface. With which country did India recently sign economic cooperation and trade agreement called ACTA? Australia. So I want you to write some basic points about this. I went to the Australian government's website because the Indian government's website has almost no detail. The Commerce Ministry's website has almost no details on this particular, trade agreement. So I went to the Australian government's website and I found a lot of good data there. See, for a class I prepare extensively. I would spend hours to learn all these things to help you become familiar with the word. Only because I'm familiar, I could talk about the global economy when we discuss, the Indian monetary policy. Yeah. See, it is not just me that is familiar. I want you to become familiar. And whenever you learn something, I have told this repeatedly, whenever you learn something, it may happen that you may not understand everything and you may not remember everything. Never mind. Don't get discouraged. A lot of things we don't understand. In fact, there is everything we don't understand. Yeah, someday we'll understand this statement. There is everything we don't understand. But let's make an effort to get interested. Remember how curious were you in your childhood? You would go and touch this, go and touch that. Your mom would say, no, don't touch that. Your pop would say, no, don't touch this. Now, you are curious about what other people are doing. Facebook, Instagram, yeah, isn't it? So I want you to become the child, the old child. Awaken the child in you. See, somewhere the child is lost, has been lost, is gone somewhere. Become curious again. It's good to learn. It's good to have fun. Learning is fun, isn't it? So on this Australian government website, I found a lot of good, interesting stuff. I just wish our government departments work equally hard to put all the details in, matter of fact way. So on this particular website, government Australia's website, I found one major detail that said that the Australia-India two-way trade means between Australia and India is worth $24.3 billion. This is the exact number, okay? $24.3 billion. Now, of this, something like $15.6 billion is Australian exports to India. So Australia has a trade surplus and we have a trade deficit. We import much more from Australia than we export. So Australian exports to India. So you could say basically 15 minus, say, okay, it's about little under $9 billion. Little under $9 billion. So if we export goods and services worth $8.7 billion, take $8.5 billion, take 9. We worth goods worth $9 billion to Australia, but import a little, around $16 billion worth of stuff. So this kind of trade helps. This kind of trade deals helps because now under the trade deal, 96% of Indian exports to Australia, you could write this, 96% of Indian exports to Australia, 96% of Indian exports to Australia will be duty free, so no taxes. So you are exporting some stuff to Australia, let's say you are exporting this X commodity to Australia, Earlier, there's about 10% tax. The government of Australia charged 10% tax of stuff coming from into Australia. Now they say no tax. They say no tax. You don't have to pay any tax. Let the goods come in, sell in the market. That's it. So your goods become cheaper. There is no tax. When the goods are cheaper, there is a wider access to a bigger market. I mean, it goes like this, a bigger market actually. Got it? Yeah. So what is Australia getting in this? So 96% of Indian goods, exports worth about $9 billion would be tax free. And coming to Australia, you could write this: 85% of Australian goods, sorry guys, 85% of Australian goods Australian exports to India, 85% of Australian exports to India will see no taxes. Will see no taxes. Okay? Yeah. See, these things didn't happen overnight. The negotiations start for this kind of agreement started in 2011. 2011 is when we started talking with Australia, and Australia and India began talking about this kind of agreement. 9 rounds of talks have happened since 2000, since they began in 2000, since the talks began in 2011. So between 2011 and now, there have been 9 rounds of negotiations, and finally they have been, they have agreed to this particular trade deal. It's a good trade deal. Yeah. So it's pretty good for all of us because Australian goods now will become cheaper, which is good for them, because their goods get wider market in India. Now, one more thing is, who's the Prime Minister of Australia? Just a couple of the countries here. Australia's Prime Minister is Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison. Turkey is a country that's deep in trouble, serious trouble, because of this man's beliefs. See, he's a rabid Islamist, and he says that we will not charge interest. We will not charge interest. Interest rates will be extremely low, he said. Inflation in Turkey today, unofficially, it's about 2,500%. Which means that prices have gone up by 2,500 in the last 1 year. 2,500% unofficially. So if you look at Turkish president, he says, if I keep the interest rates low, people will borrow money, spend money to generate production, and that production will bring down the inflation. See, the problem is not just that interest rates are high. There is overall demand has gone down because of, now, see, my money is worth nothing because of inflation, high inflation. So, if I don't have the right kind of purchasing power, my quality of life will decrease. And that is what is building a lot of resentment against this man in Turkey. But then he's a dictator, so he is a democratically elected dictator. Anyway, Ukraine, we've been discussing things, okay. Which has become the 30th country to back India's proposal for a coalition for disaster resilient infrastructure that aims to help small island nations develop resilience to deal with the adverse impact of climate change. The answer is there, Madagascar. This is Madagascar. The fourth, you could write this, fourth biggest island in the world. Fourth biggest island in the world. Okay, fourth biggest island in the world. Which area, if I'm not wrong, is this? Okay, let's look at something more. Capital, is it mentioned here? Yeah, it is here. I know it's way too small in font size. Antananarivo. Antananarivo. The president is a guy called Andre Rajoelina. Andre Rajoelina. The currency of Madagascar is Ariari. Is it? Ariari. So let me make you familiar with one more country here. Mauritius. This is Mauritius. With Mauritius. Mauritius. Then this is Mauritius. This is Seychelles, of course, a small group of islands here. Maldives, these are Maldives. Maldives is a country spread across 90,000 square kilometers. Can you believe that? The country's area is 298 square kilometers. But territorially, it's spread across 90,000 square kilometers. 90,000 square kilometers. Okay. Now I want you to write just a couple. So why the government of India has started this? See, global sea levels are rising. As sea levels rise, low-lying islands will get submerged. Low-lying areas will get submerged. Not just islands, even the coastlines will get submerged. It is believed that by 2050, if things go bad, really bad, and ice caps melt at the current levels, yeah, then sea levels might rise by about 18 feet, which could lead to serious trouble. A country like Maldives, is the lowest country in the world in terms of altitude. Above sea level, it's about average altitude is 1.5 meters. So, and the highest point in Maldives is about 5.1 meters, if I'm not wrong, which means if sea levels rise, the whole of Maldives will go underwater. So will the low-lying areas of Madagascar, and the substantial proportion of Madagascar's population is along that coastline, especially in the south and east of the country. Yeah, and the west small there, but south and east of the country. The central lands in Madagascar are all highlands, dense forests at the same time, hilly areas. So there is problem basically. So there aren't resources in the center of the country. If low-lying islands get submerged, what will happen to India's coastline? People will have to push, will have to move inwards. That would put a lot of pressure on resources in the hinterland. So this is why the government of India is looking at building infrastructure, bunding things that could minimize the damage to communities living in the coastal areas, in low-lying areas. Okay, Fiji's capital is Suva. It's not there, Fiji, southeast of Australia. About 28% of this country's population practices Hinduism. Okay, Solomon Islands above Fiji, you would find them. The capital of Solomon Islands is Honiara. What is it? Honiara. Yeah. Mauritius, Port Louis. Port Louis. Maldives, Mali. These are the capitals. I don't want you to burden with the names of the leaders of these countries. Like, for example, the Mauritius Prime Minister is a guy called Pravind Jugnauth. Maldives President is, what's his name? Ibrahim Mohammed Soleh. Fiji, Frank Bainimarama. I don't really want you to write this. Okay? It's not useful for the exam. If you look at Solomon Islands, Manashe Sogavere. I remember this because I'm interested in these countries. Which of the following banks recently announced a decision to create a digital bank within bank as part of its future-ready digital transformation project? UBI, Union Bank of India. So mergers happened. Andhra Bank and Corporation Bank were merged with Union Bank of India. So if you look at Union Bank of India, the chairperson is Who's the CEO? Raj Kiran Rai. Raj Kiran Rai. Raj Kiran Rai. Raj Kiran Rai. What about IDBI Bank? Rakesh Sharma. Rakesh Sharma. SBI. Dinesh Khara. How familiar would you be with banking mergers and all that? I'm not very sure, but maybe in the next class I'll give you the list of mergers and all that stuff. Okay. See, I usually keep my promises. Like in the last class, I mentioned that we will discuss repo rate and all that. Statutory liquidity ratio, I remember I mentioned that I will discuss it. I didn't find it interesting enough to discuss in light of the monetary policy. So we looked at the bigger picture. Yeah, NABARD and SIDBI. NABARD is Chintala Govindarajulu. Chintala Govindarajulu. And SIDBI is Sivasubramaniam Raman. Yeah, Sivasubramaniam Raman. Oh. Okay, yeah. As part of its effort to encourage the private sector in India to take part in the defense production, that is to encourage the domestic defense defense industry. What is the percentage earmarked by the Union Defense Minister for the domestic private industry? About 25%. See, the government of India in the recent budget allocated about 85,000 crore rupees for defense capex, defense modernization. 85,000 crore was announced. Of this big number, 25% will be source. I mean, goods worth, equipment worth 25%. That is 21,000 crores, a little over 21,000 crore will be sourced from domestic industry. So this is incentivizing. 21,000 crore is not small money. Yeah, it's huge money. So they are looking at incentivizing Indian companies, to minimize dependence on imports. So we are looking at now making in India as a big thing, increasing production so that more and more people get employment in the defense sector. At the same time, we produce defense equipment within the country and also reduce our dependence on foreign arms. Okay, things are changing, but of course it's 75 years we've been using a lot of foreign stuff, so it will take a long time for us to reduce our dependence on foreign stuff. But we are getting there. Eventually we will get to a level where, hopefully we get to a level where we kind of don't import as much as we are importing today. Who's the Union Defense Minister? Rajnath Singh. Which of the following institutions recently released a report titled Braving the Storms, East Asia and the Pacific Economic Update? World Bank. See, I told you that the recovery around the world has been quite uneven. If you look at this, just East Asia, and Southeast Asia, Pacific Islands and all, you would see this. Very few countries have had what we say even growth. While China's growth here is being shown as around 11%, please know that is pre-inflation, and so a lot of countries have suffered massive problems, massive drops in production and economic output. This has led to a drop in GDP. See the numbers actually. Of course, Palau, Fiji, Myanmar, these are small economies. If you look at especially Palau, Fiji, Samoa, Timor-Leste, which is also called East Timor, Vanuatu, these are small places. But you need to understand that the FSM, Federated States of Micronesia, all these still matter because there are people who live here. When economies, we may say these are small economies, but you need to understand that while these are small economies, people get impacted, their daily lives get impacted if there is no demand for their goods and services. Yeah. So quality of life suffers, people suffer, and that's not a good thing, my friends. Yeah. There are fewer things worse than lack of money, especially when it concerns your survival, basic necessities. So, the choices: World Bank. The president is David Malpass. David Malpass. That's the president's name. Anshula Kant. CFO and MD. President. We'll write one more name. Carmen Reinhardt. Chief Economist. Chief Economist. Carmen Reinhardt, Chief Economist. Chief Economist. So we could write something similar for IMF. Kristalina Georgieva. Kristalina Georgieva for Bulgaria. She's from Bulgaria. Chief economist is Paul Olivier Gourinchas. He's from France. UNICEF, Audrey Azoulay. Let me clear this. Too much I've read. Audrey Azoulay is from France. She's from France. No. It is my mistake. Hardcore. I'm extremely sorry. I got a little confused between UNICEF and UNESCO. She is Audrey Azoulay is the president of UNESCO. She is the Secretary General of UNESCO. Audrey Azoulay. UNICEF. Yeah. Then AIAB. I think we discussed in the recent class, so we will not discuss it again. I think I just didn't want to discuss even UNESCO, but I mentioned the name of that lady. What's her? Audrey Azoulay of France. Which Indian public sector company recently entered a memorandum of understanding with the Israeli aerospace industries to convert civil passenger aircraft to multi-mission tanker transport aircraft in India? We really require this, and we don't have the technology, so we have entered a JV with Israeli Space Agency. Israel Aerospace Industries. HAL is run by R. Madhavan. BDL Commodore Siddharth Mishra. Bharat Electronics Limited does not have a full-time chief, no MD or anything. Okay, no chairperson, no full-time. BHEL Nalin Shinghal. Midhani. See, BHEL is Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. Midhani is Mishran Dhatu Nigam Limited. Mishram Dhatu Nigam Limited. Yeah. It's run by, what's his name? Sanjay Kumar Jha. This is the first ever time we are discussing Midhani. Okay. You know, what are the first indigenously developed fighter aircraft? It was called HF Maruth or HF-24 Maruth. Let me clear this and write. The first ever, it was called HAL HF-24 Marut. The first ever India developed indigenous fighter aircraft. Okay, I learned this because when I went to HAL, I was reading the history of HAL. That's where I found this. And this was there in the 1960s. And it was the first Asian fighter aircraft to go beyond the testing stage and into production. The center recently extended the scheme to provide 40 crore grants in aid to the Dalai Lama's Central Tibetan Relief Committee for another 5 years up to, okay. These are the places where you'll find a lot of Tibetan refugees. Now in this map you will find something weird. These are, see, Kashmir, these are foreign maps. This is Reuters map. You can see Reuters map. Okay? Not administered, occupied. That is the terminology you should know, my friends. I deliberately took this map. Okay? This is, now it's like this, but this is an old map, of course. Okay? So this part, there is Pakistan occupied J&K, and there is Pakistan occupied Ladakh. Then there is China occupied Ladakh. China occupied Ladakh. China also claims this area. Arunachal Pradesh, as in their maps, it is shown as South Tibet. South Tibet. Yes, yes. In their maps, it's shown as South Tibet. Okay. In the next class, I'll promise you, I'll tell you the story of Tibet, how it was occupied and everything. I normally have never discussed this in a bank class. In fact, I have never discussed this in a bank class. What normally? I'll bring this in. Okay, in the next class. So right now, I'll leave it here. I'll bring this question back and we'll discuss in detail. Yeah. Then the second edition of the Swarm drone competition launched by the Indian Air Force for Indian startups to develop a Swarm drone based system to detect foreign objects on aircraft operating surfaces. Meher Baba. What is it? Meher Baba. Now, why Meher Baba? You must be wondering why Meher Baba, isn't it? This is named not the Saint Meher Baba, okay? Not the Guru Saint, Meher Baba. There was one person who was in the Indian Air Force, Air Commodore Meher Singh. Air Commodore Meher Singh. He was affectionately called Meher Baba by his team. Okay. In his honor, this competition was named. Yeah. So, aircraft operating surfaces would be runways and all that stuff. So, fine out. Mitra Shakti is the name of the, what is that? It's the name of a military exercise between India and Sri Lanka. India and Sri Lanka. Yeah, India and Sri Lanka. Mitra Shakti. Okay. The Union government recently formed an advisory committee to drive the 72,000 crore project Semicon India to make the country a global leader in semiconductor manufacturing and design. The panel was formed under the chairmanship of Ashwani Vaishnav. Who is this person? You could write this. Union Minister of Railways, Communication, 3 different ministries and important ones. Railways, Communication and third one Electronics and Information Technology. Electronics and Information Technology. So this entire project, Semicon, comes under this ministry. Okay, Electronics and Information Technology. Who is Narendra Singh Kapani? Narendra Singh Kapani is called the father of the optic fiber. Yeah, fiber optic or optic fiber. He is a guy who invented optic fibers. He was given the Padma Vibhushan. Of course, I think posthumously something. Okay, optic fibers. Vinod Dham, the father of the Pentium chip. Pentium chip. Father of the Pentium chip. R.K. Swami Paulraj's work in electronics, especially wireless technologies, led to the birth of 4G and 5G. Okay. Sam Pitroda, many people call him the father of the telecom revolution in India. Telecom revolution in India. The United Nations General Assembly recently voted a move by the United States to suspend Russia from the United States Human Rights Council for its aggression in Ukraine. UNHRC is in Geneva. What is it? Switzerland. Okay. And the president of this agency is Federico Villegas. Where could this guy come from? Argentina. Yeah. Hague, Netherlands is home to the International Court of Justice. International Court of Justice. We discussed the other ones. Paris, UNESCO. Okay. Which of the following institutions has forecast that India's GDP growth will moderate to 7.5%, 7.5% in this current financial year from an estimated 8.9% earlier, the previous? Okay. Okay, Asian Development Bank. I think we discussed this in the recent class also. We'll not discuss this. See, they say that the second and the conflict in UK, the precise things that we discussed in the first in our discussion on the first question, same thing. Structural slowdown in China is impacting the world. Monetary tightening in the US, and then of course a conflict in Ukraine, leading to high prices of commodities, high inflation globally, and supply chain issues. Yeah, all these things. I'll just tell you about two things. Asian Development Bank, Manila, head office is in Manila, which is the capital of Philippines, and the president is Masatsugu Asakawa. Masatsugu Asakawa. He is from Japan. European Central Bank, head office is in Frankfurt, which is in Germany, and it's run by Christine Lagarde. She's from France. Christine Lagarde. New Development Bank, also called the BRICS Bank, headed by the way, it's in Shanghai, and Marcos Troizo of Brazil is the president. Investment firm Mitsui and Company will invest in round-the-clock renewable energy project being developed by Renew Power and pick a 49% stake. Mitsui and Company is based in Japan, Tokyo, Japan. Okay. Its CEO is Konichi Hori. You won't be asked this question, don't worry. Something's wrong. Konichi Hori is the CEO of Mitsui. Renew Power CEO is Vishal. What's his name, man? I forgot his. I don't know what. Sumant Sinha. Sumant Sinha. Sumant Sinha. Chalo. Which of the following companies will require IDFC Asset Management Company and IDFC Asset Management Trustee Company worth 4,500 crore? All of them. All of them. IDFC AMC is run by a guy called Vishal Kapoor. See, Bandhan Bank, you have heard of Bandhan Bank? It's run by CEO Chandra Shekhar Ghosh. He's a CEO or MD, Chandra Shekhar Ghosh. Which of the following, by the way, EMC, if you don't know, is asset management company. Simply put, mutual fund. Okay. Which of the following institutions has launched Kadam, India's first affordable made in India prosthetic knee? IIT Madras. IIT Madras. So IIT Madras has built this prosthetic knee, bendable and all that, in collaboration with, you could write this, Society for Biotechnology, no, Society for Biomedical Technology. Biomedical Technology. Society for Biomedical Technology. Okay. According to the QS World Rank University Ranking 2022, which institution has been ranked 37th and named as one of the top universities of the world for the study of several subjects in the domain of engineering? IIT Kharagpur. I want you to write this. QS World University Ranking 2022. Top 3 are 1. Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Next, University of Oxford. Three, Stanford University. Stanford University. What about India? Where do Indian institutions stand? Which is the highest ranked Indian institute? I was discussing this with a friend, so I remember the numbers. IIT Bombay at 170, globally 177, 185 is IIT Delhi. 186 is the Indian Institute of Science. Indian Institute of Science. Find the correct statement about the 36th Forbes Annual World Billionaires List. This is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the founder of Space Exploration Corporation, that is SpaceX, a company called Neuralink, PayPal, the Boring Company, plenty of other companies, but he is the CEO of Tesla. CEO of Tesla. He now wants to buy Twitter. So currently he is worth $273 billion. It is now, it's gone up actually. Okay. So these are the numbers. Actually, you can see that India's richest at the time of this ranking was Mukesh Ambani, but right now it is Gautam Adani. Okay. So these things keep changing. Please know that these things keep changing depending on the share prices of the holdings they have and all. Okay, it is said that money is relative. I'll end the class with this. Okay, money is relative. The more the money, the more the relatives. Yeah, I know it's a bad joke. Thanks for being here. That's all from me, Bharat C. Jain. Have a lot of fun. Thank you so much, my friends. Take care, dears.